Hey guys, welcome to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we're back with a Lucian supplementary guide. This is a pretty interesting build that was suggested to me by one of the comments on one of my Lucian guides quite some time ago now, but you know, as usual before making a video, I want to really test this out. So I played this for a lot of matches, definitely I think at least 15-20 matches I played this build, and I tested it out to see if it really was good or not. So anyways, before we jump into the build, of course I'm going to refer you guys to the Lucian basic guide for his skills, leveling order, tips and tricks, as well as combos. But without further ado, let's dive straight into the items. So basically the main draw of this build is, you know how I complained in my MANAMUNE build that when you go for MANAMUNE, you're wasting Lucian's strong early game and you're just wasting his strong early game to stack MANAMUNE, but you trade off that early game for a better late game instead. Whereas if you go for the Essence Reaver build as a first item without going for MANAMUNE, you're going to get a stronger early game and double down on your early game power, but you're going to lose out on late game power because you don't have your MANAMUNE. So it's kind of a trade-off. So someone suggested to me in the comments, why not start off with an Essence Reaver and then go into MANAMUNE? Well, I've tried it out, and I'm going to let you guys know my thoughts in the gameplay section of the video, but let's explain how this build works. So first off, we know Lucian has a strong early game, so you're going to start off with your Essence Reaver. This is going to, of course, give you the nice stats, crit, AD, ability haste, but what you are really after is your Essence Flare passive. This, of course, increases the damage of your abilities by 22.5% at base, and then it's going to scale up to 30% every crit item you get, which you're going to get to later on. And this is going to make your early game stronger because this is going to give you, of course, that big burst damage on your Q or even your ult sometimes, and this will help out a lot. Then you go into MANAMUNE. So as we know, MANAMUNE needs to get stacked. So after you already secured your early game power, you go for the MANAMUNE, you start to stack it up. Eventually it's going to evolve into the Mirror Mana. It gives you the mana and of course gives you more late game power in terms of your auto attacks and once again your abilities. But of course, you will then also have the Gluttonous Greaves, which is going to give you the AD, the Omnivamp. Now, between going for MANAMUNE and Gluttonous Greaves, I think I would go for tier into Gluttonous Greaves and then into MANAMUNE. And for the enchant, Stasis, Quicksilver, or even Protobelt is going to be really useful. And then we go into Slurry Charge Blade, which gives you all of the stats Lucian wants, namely ability haste, as well as crit. Attack speed is nice but not very important. And then we also of course have the passive, which of course gives you a stack whenever you cast your spells, and of course when Lucian autos in between, it's gonna prompt the magic damage, which of course synergizes very well with Lucian. And then your last two items is going to be IE, of course, which is going to give you the damage, the crit, and of course increase your crit damage. And then you have your Seralda's Grudge to of course give you the armor pen as well as the slow, which is very helpful on your ultimate. So you do have a couple options here. First option is to swap positions of Seralda's and IE if you need the slow or if you need the armor pen earlier on. Second option is, instead of going for IE, you could actually go for other crit items, for example Bloodthirster, because you are not exactly 100% crit. Anyway, sometimes the survivability is also more important than the pure damage, so sometimes going for Bloodthirster could be good, or even a more shield bow if you're against a lot of burst damage. So a lot of kind of flexibility with the end part of the build. So for the runes, we of course go for Kraken Slayer for the true damage, and of course this is gonna synergize very well with Lucian's kit with his double auto attack in between skills to proc Kraken Slayer more quickly. Brutal, of course, for the on-hit auto attack damage. Coup de Grace against low HP enemies, or Giant Slayer against tanky targets, as well as Legend Bloodline for the Omnivamp. And finally, you go for Bone Plating for, of course, the anti-burst as well as the laning power. You could also go for Sudden Impact because Lucian does dash quite a bit, and this is going to give you the lethality, so it's really up to you whether you want a more aggressive or a more defensive rune. I've tried both and I think both are really good. For the spells, you go for Flash and you go for Exhaust. Lucian doesn't need Ghost, so Exhaust is going to do really well, especially because you're short range and you're generally in Exhaust range. So without further ado, let's jump into talking about our gameplay. Alright, now let's move on to talking about our gameplay. So, first things first, Lucian Nami, one of the strongest combos Lucian can have. Of course, another one, Lucian Braum, of course, really strong as well. And Lucian with any aggressive support is generally pretty good because Lucian, as we all know, very strong early game, loves to fight. Doesn't really need an enchanter. Speaking of fighting, we're immediately getting into it with this level 1 pretty much all in at this point. Lulu's getting really chunked. So are me and Nami. Nami is almost down, pops the heal, Varus does manage to get the first blood, but I do manage to trade onto the Lulu, so both supports end up going down with both ADCs picking up the kills. However, I did not need to pop any of my summoner spells here, whereas Varus and Lulu popped all of their summoner spells, so we are at a pretty significant advantage in this stage of the game here. So Nami healing me, I'm taking the fruit, and I'm not really gonna back here because I'm you know, of course I got the summoner spell advantage. I'm ready to fight again if, you know, we need to. And of course I also have a level advantage over the Lulu, as does the Varus over Nami, of course. But you can see Varus is landing some pretty good poke, and Lucian is an all-in champion, which is pretty much going to get countered by poke here. So here I'm going for an aggressive trade onto Lulu. I do tank a little bit of minions, which does cause me to drop pretty low. So here I gotta be a bit more cautious because a Varus Q will, of course, kill me. But of course, with stepping far away, you can anticipate that Varus Q. So ideally I want to clear this wave and back. Varus probably looking to land another Q on us, but with Nami healing us, it should be fine. We won't die to a Varus Q at this point, even if we get hit by it, which we do not. Yeah. So before we get too far into the video, as promised from the build section of the video, I'm actually going to discuss what I think about this Essence Reaver into MANAMUNE build. Well, the short answer is, while I appreciate the person who suggested this very much, and I initially thought it was a really good idea, it turns out I don't like this too much, because this is sort of like a middle ground build where you are trying to both go for early game power and late game power, which sounds really good in theory, but in practice, most of the time in Wild Rift, it's better to just fully commit to one, which means either you just fully commit to the early game, stomp the enemy early, roll them over, and win the game through that way, or you just play for scaling and you play for the late game instead. And this kind of middle ground build where you're trying to get a little bit of both, to me doesn't really work very well, because you are getting your early game power from your Essence Reaver, which is great and all, and if you're snowballing, this is great. So if you're snowballing from your Essence Reaver, why not just go into the full early game build, like go into IE next or whatever, and just continue to snowball off of there. Like, if you're getting a Essence Reaver and snowballing in the early game, it's such a waste to then go for MANAMUNE and cut off your own early game power to try to scale for late game instead as an insurance policy. Whereas, let's say if you're doing badly in the early game, your Essence Reaver is going to be pretty useless anyways, because you're not going to be able to kill anyone since you're so far behind. So why not then just commit to the full late game build and instead just go for your MANAMUNE into your other items, so on and so forth. So I think that committing to either full late game or committing to full early game is going to be a lot better than trying to go for this kind of middle ground build. But either way, I actually do still think that this build is very viable. It's not like it's horrible or anything, but it's just that I think committing to one build is just going to be way better than just trying to go for a middle ground build. But once again, this build is still viable. You can still go for it. It still works pretty well, very serviceable, and yeah, nothing too much else to say about it. So during this whole time I was discussing the build, a lot of action has been happening. You know, we've gotten a couple of kills, we have died to a gang, etc. But now we're gonna start to talk a little bit more about the gameplay. So now let's look at the state of the game. Now I'm 2-1-2. Doing relatively okay. I wouldn't say I'm fed or anything. My goal amount is still about the same as pretty much everyone else on my team. Of course, my team is doing slightly better than any team at the moment. So we are still doing pretty alright. Not too fed, but definitely not behind either. We have completed our Essence Reaver. So this is kind of the point where, you know, why not just continue to try to snowball by going for a full crit build instead of, you know, cutting your own power off by going for the MANAMUNE. But as I said, still works really well, so we're going to still see how MANAMUNE comes into play in the later stages of the game, and it's going to pay dividends later on. But of course, for now, we have not yet gotten any of those components or whatnot. Here again, we get ganked by the Yasuo, and then we get CC chained, ulted, and just killed. Like, wow, man. Like, this game, honestly, is going really well for us in the sense that me and Nami are individually smacking the Varus and Lulu around in the 2v2, but we've gotten ganked by the Aatrox once, and then we've gotten ganked by the Yasuo once, and those are where my two deaths come from, which is, I mean, on one hand it is pretty unlucky, but on the other hand you can't really blame the unluckiness, because you should be taking note of the Yasuo roams, you should be taking note of the jungle tracking and etc. Jungle tracking one was a little bit difficult just now, but the Yasuo roam, definitely we should have seen it because he was missing from mid lane. Of course, it would have helped if our mid lane Nautilus pinged, but you know, he didn't ping. But it's still on us, you know, to be aware that he is missing from lane. So here a huge fight breaks out in the mid lane. Since I'm already in the bot lane clearing the wave, I'm gonna actually commit to going for tower plates instead, because if I rotate to the mid fight, I'm not actually gonna make it in time anyways, so I'm just going to commit to getting tower plates instead. Of course, using spells in between to proc my passive. I got 3 full plates here solo, which is 450 gold. This is more than a kill if I rotate to the mid fight and get 1 kill. But of course, me not being there means that my team does give over kills to the enemy team as well. So overall, enemy team still is benefiting. So as I mentioned, I'm going for the tier into the Gluttonous Greaves. Of course, Gluttonous Greaves is a pretty big power spike because of the AD and the Omnivamp that it gives. So we definitely want that. Now Herald is gone now, so the next objective on the map is going to be the dragon. Before I go to the dragon, I'm going to quickly push out the lane a little bit, and then I'm going to rotate immediately to the dragon. Namiya goes in, and I'm trying to quickly focus down the Lulu, I believe. So here, anyways, Yasuo tries to come in, and here I'm trying to pop my ulti onto everybody. Here I hit my Q. However, I end up in a 1v3 at the back line, and I just end up going down. Really unfortunate. A lot of them were 1 HP. If I was able to trade 1 or 2 kills, would not have been too bad, but unfortunately we just end up dying. So this is kind of the nature of Lucian as a champion, regardless of the build that you go. Because you have very short range, to do damage you have to commit like your body to be close. It's like sort of you are a ranged champion, but you're almost sort of like in between a ranged and melee champion sort of deal, because you have to really be in the fight to do damage, and as a result, you know, you're always at risk of dying, and you have to kind of balance out how much damage you want to do versus how safe you want to be. And yeah, so that's one of just those situations when you don't have the damage to finish off the kills and you just end up dying because you're too deep in, and these kind of things do happen. Fortunately, this one really was unlucky that I dashed into the bush and Varus recall just completed. If we managed to catch the Varus unawares there, we might have been able to score a kill. Speaking of catching unawares, we're trying to find a pick onto Aatrox. Aatrox gets chain CC'd by the Nami, and Twitch is able to finish off both of the kills, which is of course really great, but of course a little bit unfortunate that we couldn't get the kills ourselves. Badly in need of that goal to of course complete our items. So speaking of goal, we're just going to go for the wave instead. Varus now back in lane, popping his first strike onto us. He does of course have this build similar to the build that we covered in our last Varus video just like 2 days ago, but he does look like he's going for MANAMUNE in his build, and looks like he's going for Collector as well. So he does start off with the Essence Reaver, which is what I recommended, but he is of course going for a Collector, which in my opinion is not a very useful item on Varus, except for the fact that of course the crit from the Collector does increase your Essence Reaver damage. So it's not really that bad of an item, but I just don't like it personally, and the fact that he has a Mana Crystal kind of implies he's going for MANAMUNE sometime later on maybe. But anyway, speaking of MANAMUNE, we have completed our MANAMUNE, and we ended up not actually going for the boot since we could actually complete our entire MANAMUNE at one shot. So we're just going to get that to charge up the MANAMUNE more quickly. So here we are kind of 1v1 against the Varus. We go all in on him, pop the exhaust onto him, and pop the entire ulti. We managed to get the kill and the shutdown onto the Varus. Of course, when you find these kind of opportunities, you know, Varus does not have his ult, and he cannot 1v1 a Lucian regardless of how fed he is. If he's fed, he still needs his ult to get the stacks onto you and just one-shot you, whereas with Lucian, if you just dash in on him, you don't even necessarily need your ult to just basically burst him down. And now with Varus dispatched, we can rotate the mid lane to see if we can help our team. Nautilus goes in, flashes in for the ulti, does miss the hook though. And here, I was trying to back off the fight, but it was a little bit of a split call. I was trying to back off, but then my team kind of committed to the fight, and then I turned back and then committed to the fight, and then by then the Varus comes back, flash ults me, I get polymorph, and I just end up dying. This was a pretty horrible mistake by me, because I here was very, very indecisive. I should have either fully committed to the fight and not left to clear the ward, or if not, when I disengaged, I should have just committed to disengaging from the fight. But the fact that I first disengaged then re-engaged, it basically was just horrible. Basically, I should have just committed to either one, but it just sets up a chain of events where I die, now Nautilus dies, and then Twitch dies, or actually Twitch doesn't die. Twitch actually salvages the situation with a double kill, but him and Nami are now left on 1 HP. So overall, it didn't go too badly because Twitch was able to trade off some kills. Now I don't know what this kill's doing. She one item kills going in 1v3 with the ulti, can't really kill anybody, unfortunately here. So here I'm picking up the rip buff and I'm heading to mid to try to clear out this wave so that they can't push any further. But yeah, it's a really chaotic match. You can see in terms of towers and gold and kills, everything is more or less just completely even. It's a very even game, this entire game. Of course, in terms of objectives, the enemy team did get both objectives initially, so we are kind of losing in that aspect. However, as I said, despite that, overall the game is very even. And here the next dragon is going to spawn, so this is where the next fight is going to really break out. So with Lucian, really, you have to bide your time, wait for a moment to go in, and then you can unleash hell onto the enemy team. And that's really the name of the game of Lucian, because as I mentioned, you have to commit yourself, and if you commit yourself at the wrong time, you're just going to end up dying and looking like a fool, which is really not what we want to happen, but definitely it's going to happen, you know, from time to time. So here, we're just pushing out the wave before dragon spawns. Excuse me. So here, unfortunately, Kale is not with us. She looks like she is either farming or recalling, or who knows what's happening at this point. Here, Aatrox is in the back line. I exhaust him, flash away, and trying to escape. I'm trying to pelt him down with the ulti, but Yasuo's wind wall pretty much blocked my entire ult. And with that trap, Twitch is down. He's just respawned. Nautilus has gone down. So it looks really difficult to contest the dragon at this point. So I'm just going to recall. Here, it looks like the enemy team is coming into our jungle to try to run interference. Here, I'm trying to one-shot the Varus, but unfortunately, Varus is stuck on 1 HP. But I'm also on 1 HP, so I guess we both escape on 1 HP. So no one really managed to kill the other, and yeah, that's just the situation. So here, I managed to back. I'm going to start to build towards my Slurry Charge Blade, and here we're gonna hit back out. Enemy team picks up another dragon, building toward that 3-dragon win condition. And now enemy team has a goal lead after that kind of brush camp from the Aatrox. Hero is stuck in another fight in mid. Twitch is taking a lot of damage from Volley, but unfortunately for Volley, he gets kited out and Twitch picks up a triple kill. Here I'm dashing onto the head of the Varus, and Aatrox comes in from the side. We're just going to focus down the Aatrox. First, get rid of the front line, and then I'm going to move on to the Varus, dashing out of his ult, and then finishing him off with the double auto. So 2 quick kills onto me, and ran now in a really good state. Whole enemy team is dead. They got aced, and here we can go for the Baron. Now Twitch is very dangerously low on health, so he needs to let me and Nautilus do the Baron, and he just needs to come in for the smite at the very end. Of course, it's unlikely that enemy team is really gonna be in time to contest the Baron anyways. But here you can see we're just quickly focusing down the Baron, and Twitch gets the smite. And now we are going to, of course, just recall. Enemy team is nearby, but doesn't quite reach in time. And yeah, so here we pick up the Slurry Charge Blade, and now we have our MANAMUNE evolved into Mirror Mana. So here, this is where the quote-unquote late game power of the MANAMUNE starts to come in, and you can see that we're going to be doing more damage now than if we went for the full early game kind of build. So here is, you know, where the usefulness kind of comes in. So here, although there's nothing much to really fight over, but it looks like, you know, a lot of posturing happening at the Dragon Pit area. I guess we're going to fight over this mid tower. We have the Baron buff, and we're trying to siege down mid tower. Enemy team trying to defend the mid tower. Aatrox using his spells to clear wave. And we're going to back off just a little bit. Unfortunately, minions are not able to finish off the tower. So waiting for the next wave here to try to clear out the tower. Now, enemy team is still trying their best to defend the tower, but Baron minions should be able to get the tower, which they do. And a fight is breaking out in the bottom lane, picked onto the Yasuo, but the whole enemy team is going to be rotating down to bot. So here we have a couple options here. We can either rotate down to bot to help, or we can continue pushing mid or rotate to top. Now, since there's no wave in mid, I chose to actually rotate down. But the issue is that after we rotated down, they're already dead, and now Nami has the flash. Aatrox is still on the chase for us, and does not really go very well. So Kale, in the meanwhile, is going to push the top lane, which is far away from where any enemy is at the moment, so she's gonna get off a pretty good push. I'm picking up the stasis in this match because I'm afraid of getting caught by Varus ulti, or like by Volley, or like by Aatrox. So I think the stasis is really important in this match to get that extra second of invulnerability. And now enemy team looks like they want to push bot lane, so here we're gonna come over to defend the lane. Here Varus unfortunately does have the Edge of Night, so a little bit difficult to get any kind of meaningful damage onto him. So we're just gonna, you know, be happy with just clearing the wave and defending our towers. Wait for our team to respawn. He's of course trying to land poke, which is exactly what Lethality Varus is supposed to do here. And he's really strange build of having the tier item, a tier itself, but not having a tier item. So he's going for a very late like MANAMUNE or something, which is pretty strange. Maybe he's just doing it for the mana. Like maybe he's just building tier for the mana. Anyways, here big purchases coming in. Here Varus tries to commit onto Nami, but Nami does manage to escape, and Volley tries to come in, as do I, and Nami disengages with the wave. Now Twitch and Nautilus are starting to come in. Nautilus somehow misses a point blank hook onto the Volibear, and last normal dragon is coming up, and we of course do want to contest this to prevent the enemy team from getting the triple dragon. Here I wanted to recall, but the fight's kind of breaking out, so I can't really recall. I'm needed there for the damage onto Aatrox, which is not a whole lot of damage that we're doing onto Aatrox. Speaking of which, Varus has actually just completed his MANAMUNE, which is a really late MANAMUNE, really strange. Here I managed to get the red buff because Kill doesn't let me take the red buff, which is pretty nice. And here, as I said, the dragon fight is going to break out. Now here you can see what I'm doing here. I'm not dashing in or anything. I'm waiting for my moment to dash in here. I'm waiting. I spot an opportunity here to go onto the isolated Volibear, so I'm just focusing volley, and now I'm just gonna try to maintain distance and ult people down. Now I spot an opportunity to chase them down with some low HPs. I dash and flash in, finish off the 2 kills, stasis to buy time, and then I'm now gonna focus down the Aatrox and then get the triple, and now we can go for the dragon to deny the triple Drake. So notice here, really important, is that even though the fight technically broke out, we waited for a good like 5 to 7 seconds and we did not do anything. We're just maintaining our distance. We waited for the enemy team to use their spells. We waited for an opportunity to go in onto the Volibear, who was alone and was not focusing us, so he was no threat to us. We finished him off, and then we spotted an opportunity with a full HP Aatrox, but with a 1 HP Varus and a 1 HP Lulu. So we dashed and flashed in, finished off the 2 kills, and then popped the stasis to let Aatrox finish using his 3 Qs. And without spells, Aatrox doesn't really do very much damage, which allows us to pick up the kill on him as well. Now in this match, I decided to go for the IE next because I really feel like I needed the damage to especially kill you know, the enemy champions. And now we've picked up the dragon, we've picked up the Baron, but what's coming up next? It's Elder Dragon spawning right now. So looks like we are in for another fight over the Elder Dragon. Aatrox is of course in position, but it looks like his team is not in position, so it is possible for us to actually do the dragon. However, our jungler Twitch does manage to pick up a kill onto Yasuo, but he's not at 1 HP, so he's trying to recall, so we shouldn't be doing the dragon. See, I'm pinging retreat so that we don't do the dragon, but Kayle doesn't get the memo. She's just focusing the dragon now, which means that Aatrox could possibly just run in and steal it, which is horrible. So here I'm trying to just wait for Twitch to come back, which we do eventually manage to delay enough time. Twitch is now in, Aatrox is now running in as well, but thankfully Twitch does get the smite. So here we finish off 2 kills. I'm trying to ult down you know, Varus and Lulu, but unfortunately I do get rooted by the Varus ulti. Kayle manages to finish the kill onto him, and at this point in time only Lulu's left alive, so I'm going to hit mid to get the wave in for the top lane, I'm sorry, for the mid lane, sorry, and with this mid lane wave we can use it to end. We don't necessarily even need to go to top lane or any other lane. You can just use the mid wave and just quickly end the game. We of course do have the double buffs now. Yasuo is the only man left alive on the enemy team, but honestly he can't really do anything against our entire team. Enemy team sees the writing on the wall and does surrender. So anyways, with all of that, I'm gonna leave you guys with the stats as usual. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and goodbye.